Good afternoon, viewers. You're welcome once again to our online teaching series. Today we're going to take a look at a simple problem in biology. Practice question number 10 that briefly describe the homeostatic mechanism of glucose control in the body. Homeostatic mechanism. Now, first and foremost, we should have an understanding that the end product of carbohydrate digestion is glucose. So when you take any carbohydrate food, the end product of the carbohydrate is glucose. And the level of glucose in the bloodstream at every point in time is supposed to be normal. How can it be normal if it is increased? How can it be normal when it is extremely low? That is a topic of discussion here. Now follow me as we discuss or describe the homeostatic mechanism. What is homeostasis? The maintenance of a fairly and constant internal environment is homeostasis. Now let's take a look at when the level of sugar in the bloodstream is high after some hours of a carbohydrate meal. So let's assume here is the blood. We have the blood, and the blood flows to several organs. Take a look at this. It flows to several organs. All these are organs of the body. Let's say here we have the brain, because there is a blood supply to the brain, blood supply to the liver, there is a blood supply to the kidney, blood supply to the pancreas, blood supply to the stomach, blood supply to the intestines, blood supply to the spleen. So every organ of the body receives its own share of blood supply. Now, here is the blood. If there is an increased level of sugar in the bloodstream, now let me use this arrow here, upward arrow, indicating that the level of sugar in the bloodstream is high. Now, this blood is being distributed to every organ of the body, but the first to signal is the brain, because in homeostasis, the overall control is done by the brain. So the brain, chemoreceptors in the brain signal that the level of sugar in the bloodstream is high. How can the brain bring about the mechanism of homeostasis? Number one, via nervous impulses. Impulses are sent, look at it, messages are sent to, not the liver, messages are sent from the brain to the pancreas. Impulses are sent to the pancreas. What is this impulse? The level of sugar in the bloodstream is high. So, initiate mechanism that will bring about the reduction of that level of sugar. And now here in the pancreas, we have two major cells in the pancreas. We have the alpha cells and we have the beta cells. But in this case, the impulse is directly to the beta cells. It initiates and stimulates the beta cells to secrete the hormone called insulin. Now, insulin, when secreted, is poured directly into the bloodstream because it is the secretion of a ductless gland. And we know that ductless glands are also known as endocrine glands. So when insulin is secreted, it flows directly into the bloodstream. Now look at it. Now, when it gets into the bloodstream, and just as I said, the blood circulates to every organ. If the insulin gets to the spleen, it does no work. The insulin gets to the stomach, it gets no work. It has no work there, except it gets to where its target cells are. Now, when the blood flows to the liver, what happens? There is the liver. The liver will now convert all the excess glucose coming to it. It will convert it to what we call glycogen. The brain, the muscles also does the same thing. Let's assume here we have the muscles. The muscles also, what do? They convert excess glucose in the bloodstream to glycogen. So look at this is an homeostatic mechanism. Naturally, God kept this mechanism to make sure that these substances are not in excessive amount in the bloodstream. But now, if this level of glucose is now reduced, hypoglycemia, it brings it down. Initially, it was excess. Now let's assume that the individual in which the whole of this process occurs goes into a state of fasting, 20 days, 29, no food. You see that the level of glucose in the bloodstream will be drastically decreased. Remember also, here I will have a downward arrow. Downward arrow here signifies that the level of glucose in the bloodstream is now extremely low. So also, the brain signals that the level of glucose is low. This time around, it sends a second impulse message to the alpha cells. The alpha cells of the pancreatic islet of Langerhans. We call it the islet of Langerhans. This islet of Langerhans contains these two important cells, alpha cell and beta cell. Now, this second time, it gets to the alpha cell to secrete a second hormone called glucagon. And what is the function of glucagon? It does the opposite of what insulin does. It will be flown into the bloodstream, and when it gets into the liver, you find out that in this second time, what is the glucagon doing? Glucagon stimulates the liver to reconvert the stored glycogen back to glucose. So it means that some time ago, liver, some time ago, you converted enough glucose to glycogen done by insulin. Now, this second time, glucagon is coming back to the liver. Please, this body system, the level of glucose is low. Can you reconvert the stored glycogen back to glucose? Now, you know one thing there. It's like you have a shock, a black man chalkboard. A blackboard chalk. If you use a sellotape to wire around it, you find out that if you want to write on the board, it will not write. But what you have there is chalk. So also, your body needs glucose, but in the presence of enough stored glycogen, it is not recognizing it as glucose. Except the hormone glucagon comes back, secreted by the pancreatic islet of Langerhans, the alpha cells. It now stimulates the liver to reconvert the stored glycogen back to glucose. By so doing, you say that the liver, the brain, the pancreas has combined to do the job of controlling the level of glucose in the bloodstream. I advise you, take advantage of this video, go back to your textbooks, read, and I believe you will get the understanding better than what you've seen there. Thank you until we meet in our next series. Bye.